everyone. This is Dr. Christopher Holmes, founder and chief consultant for Fully Engaged Education. I have spent so many years working with schools and principals and teachers and districts trying to support school improvement. It is my passion, it is what I love to do. I love school improvement work. I love to see students and I love to see adults, leaders and teachers to grow and develop, and ultimately to see improved school success. But what many of you all don't know is that my first passion when it comes to teaching is science. I graduated Mercer University with a science degree in biology, a minor in chemistry, and I started teaching high school science for the first 7 years of my career. I absolutely love science, and although I love school improvement work, I am still a very avid, passionate teacher of science education. I stay committed and abreast of all science curriculum and standards across not just the state of Georgia, but also across the nation. And so I'm excited to share with you my biology student formative assessment tasks. Now, why is this important? One of the things that I've noticed in my 8 years of being a consultant is that in science in particular, there seems to be a lack of connection and relevancy for students in the work that they do and how they demonstrate understanding. Why is that important? In order to grasp some very abstract concepts that we see in biology, and also some very relevant topics, but irrelevant connections. So we have very few points of access for students when we talk about some of the topics and the standards that are covered in the subject of biology. So what I really wanted to do was give teachers a more in-depth understanding of where they need to go when they scaffold and guide and spiral instruction up to meet the level of the standards, but also allow them to see what students should be able to do independent of the teacher when they have completed topics or standards within the course. So these tasks are very engaging. They're very interactive. They come with pictures and images because I'm a true proponent of basically exposing and showing students what the idea, the topic looks like, whether it be a visual example, whether it be a graph, whether it be a chart or a table. And also, of course, this also uses the language of the standards. So the level of rigor and literacy needed to be able to accomplish these particular tasks are very high. Now, this gives you, again, like I said, a platform or a tool for where you need to start and how deep you need to cover and how broad you need to cover the topics in the course of biology. So let's just dive right in and take a quick look at what this looks like. So here's the cover. I designed the cover. I'm excited about the cover. And what I wanted to expose is life on Earth, different aspects of living things. Here on the first page, this is definitely a workbook that I want students to be able to use and have in hand. There is, of course, a physical copy, but we will also provide a digital copy if those options are needed. Now, this is covering the state of Georgia. This is where I live. I live here. I'm based out of Georgia, but this can be applicable and I can create this and align it to all state standards. What I love about this book, though, although this specifically has a Georgia context, but it also has connections to next generation science standards. For those of you who are in states that are doing next generation science standards, this book will work perfectly for you because I show the alignment throughout all these tasks. So as you notice, students will write their name and all the information here. And then they will go through and create goals for themselves. So I'm very big on not just school improvement goals, but also individual student goals. So in my work with schools as we drive achievement, this is one of the things that we definitely do. We focus on students establishing goals for themselves, realistic goals. We challenge those goals if we think that they are lowballing, and we want to push them to achieve their best performance across each unit in biology. So in the state of Georgia, we cover 5 units. They will create a goal for each one of these 5 units. This is going to be based on their summative assessment that they're going to be given, okay? And then you also see there are 34 tasks in the book, 34 individual tasks, and those are aligned to the standards within each of these 5 units. So as they go through task, they will go back to this particular page on page 3, and they will write the score they received on that task. Now, why is the tracking important for the student? Number one, understanding of their performance. Number two, voice and advocacy. What does that mean? As students get ready to take summative assessments, they need to be able to go back and look at their performance over those tasks in each of those units and say to you, the teacher, the leader, the parent, I don't feel prepared to take the summative assessment. I need some additional support. The question is going to be, what's your evidence? Where they're going to be able to go back and look at tasks 1 through 8, let's say, and say, I only showed proficiency on 3 out of those 8 tasks. That lets me know I'm not prepared to engage in the summative assessment. I would love some additional practice on task 1, or the standards that are covered in task 1, 2, 5, 6, and 8. That's power. That's students giving voice to their needs, advocating for themselves to ensure they are prepared and ready to tackle rigorous level work. That then builds in collaboration between the student and the teacher. I always say work for achievement does not happen in isolation just by the teacher. It has to happen in collaboration with the students, especially your older students. I believe all students collaborate, but especially your older students should be partners in the learning process with you. You should not be doing this all by yourself. So you flip the page. So they've created some goals. Now they're going to go back and write their actual grades across the unit. And they're going to make that comparison. I give a little bit of acknowledge here in the front of the book. Again, this just talks about why this is important in my dedication to students and to see learning happen for everyone. Then you'll see here, all 34 tasks, you'll see the units highlighted in black, and then all the tasks that are aligned to those units throughout the book. You see that this is very large, right? There are 219 pages of actual tasks in this book or workbook. So this took a lot of time and dedication, but I wanted to ensure I was being very specific in aligning the work that happens for the students inside of the workbook. So then we go into it. Here's Unit 1. You'll see all the core ideas that are covered in Unit 1. These are the state standards here in Georgia that are covered, and these are the NGSS aligned standards right below it. You're also going to see the standards for each task listed on the page that's being covered. So here's Unit 1. This is Task 1. You see the standard SB1. You see SB1A is the specific element. You see the NGSS focus, and then you start the task. It says label each structure and organelle on the diagram below. This is pretty much warming them up. This is something that students should be able to do without your help in order to cover that standard, because the standard says obtain, evaluate, and communicate information to analyze the nature of the relationships between structures and functions in living cells. The element says construct an explanation of how cell structures and organelles, you have those organelles listed, interact as a system to maintain homeostasis. So we're not asking students definitions. We're not asking students what is homeostasis. We're not asking students to go in and to just pretty much label and identify these organelles. They have to then be able to construct an explanation to explain this as a system to maintain homeostasis. So the first thing says, let's just warm up, make sure you understand what organelles are, where they're located, how they physically look different if you look at an image. Once they do that, they move on. Then they go into an actual task. Now, if you're looking at this, this is very front heavy. All right. This particular link is going to take them to a virtual lab. The virtual lab, they will run it and then answer the questions in this lab, creating or filling in the tables. They will go in, create a graph. All of the data here related to percentage of concentration of the environment and in the tubes will all be located. And then they're going to begin engaging in questions. Question 1, how are beaker A and beaker B different? Once they complete this part of the diagram, they'll be able to tell the difference based on these percentages. They should be able to tell me what those percentages represent and how to differentiate between each of those beakers. It says, what does beaker A represent as it relates to cell A? Again, once they run the lab, they should be able to answer these questions without direct support from you. Then they'll go through these other questions. Which dialysis tube had the least amount of change? Based on the lab, how do cells respond to their external environment? Now we're getting into the system. How does the cell respond as a system to shifts in the environment? Then the key thing is, what is your evidence? Give evidence from the lab to support your answer. Number 4, how does a cell structure function that demonstrates how cells operate as a system to maintain homeostasis? How does the cell structures function to demonstrate how the cells operate as a system to maintain homeostasis? So they have to explain, based on the lab, how the cell functions as a system to maintain homeostasis. What happened in the lab? What did the cells do? What structures were involved? What did it need to do to maintain homeostasis? And what did homeostasis look like in this particular context? They will go through, do all of that. The teacher will come back. They will grade the task. They will circle mastery, proficient, remediation needed, or total reteaching is necessary. They will provide the student with feedback, specific feedback on what they did in or on this particular task to help guide them if remediation and reteaching is necessary. If they perform mastery on this task, this is a student that's ready for acceleration. They're ready to move on to go deeper. They need additional practice. They can now begin to develop, create some things related to the standard. And again, they're going to go back, take this student score, they're going to place it back on their tracking sheet for task 1. So now they're creating almost a data table for themselves as they go through this.
In progress.
So I wanted to give you an example of what this lab looks like. So once you click on that link, and the actual link, a web link for the lab will also be posted in a different place if you get the book itself. And it'll be placed on the website. So you can just go in and click the actual labs instead of going in trying to copy and paste those actual links. So this is a virtual lab of cell homeostasis. The actual images and the tables come directly from the lab. So the students will run their own lab. And some of you all may be familiar with this lab. If not, this is a great virtual lab. But to put it as an individual student task is powerful. And it will also help students do this virtually if they're not ready to engage in this lab physically, or you just don't have the supplies to do this particular lab. Now, you can front load this by doing a simple model of the lab for students. But it gives all the instructions. It tells them what to do if you're reading across the top. And I'll give you a heads up. This particular lab focuses on diffusion as we put various concentrations of cells in the beaker. And then the cells have to respond to maintain homeostasis. Okay? If you want a quick sample of this, I'll be more than happy to share this particular page with you and give you a demo of the actual workbook. All right, let's go back to the actual workbook itself. Now, you will also provide students with next steps after you provide them feedback. You will reassess those students that need to be retaught or who need remediation and give them a new grade. They can simply go back to that front page, scratch out the initial grade, and put in their new grade that shows their new level of proficiency on that particular standard. Now, if you want to give some additional assessment, if you don't want just to do the formative assessment task, but you want to give a selective response assessment, I also have that option that comes in a different workbook, and we call those quick formative assessments. I have a quick formative assessment that goes with each and every task in this book. So let me give you a quick glimpse of that, but I will do a totally separate video for that, but I do want to give you an example of what that looks like. So you will notice they will give the date and the standard being covered, and there are only 10 questions for every quick formative assessment. So let's take a look at what the formative assessment itself looks like. So here is a quick look at these assessments. 10 questions for each task. They're all selected response. This particular assessment, just like all the others, will link directly to the task that the students do on those formative assessment items. Now, let's say that you don't want the task, but you do want to purchase the quiz formative assessments. You can definitely do that. They don't have to engage in the task in order to answer these questions. It does help because they're now making those connections and relevancy as they're bringing that information over. But all of these still allow students to apply their understanding of the standard being covered in that particular task for each formative assessment quick quiz. All right, so here's a quick look at that. This is great. Like I said, there are 34 tasks in that book, which means there are 34 quick quizzes in this particular book. There will be a teacher's edition, which will have the answers that look just like this, and there will be a student edition, of course, with no answers. Now, you notice that the answer sheet was inside of the task book. You will also get an answer sheet that will go along with these quick quizzes as well if you purchase it separately. We can work that out. All of this is very flexible, and I will modify this to meet your needs. So there's nothing that's really set in stone. I can support you in any way that you want with either the task or the quick formative assessments. So let's go back and take a quick look at the task. So let's go to the next task. Now we're just going to zoom through these. So here's the next task. You'll see here at the bottom, this is task 2, evolutionary structural similarities. Again, the state standards for here in Georgia are listed, and then the next generation science standards are listed below it. Again, I'm going to always give you some type of image graph chart to go with each task, really bringing in that multi-sensory instruction. Making those connections. They have 4 questions. You grade it. You circle the rating. You give them feedback. If they need to be reassessed, you give them that reassessment grade, and you have to change the rating if they perform better. Again, they will track their grade on that tracking sheet in the front. Again, there is a quick formative assessment that goes with this task. As you look at this, I really want you to think, where would you start the instruction? This is the ending point. Each of these tasks are specifically aligned to the language of the standard. Okay, so this is not something you give at the beginning. You give this at the end of the standard. Really helping your students be familiar with tables, with charts, with graphs. This is just a quick sample. Like you saw, this is just 40 pages. There are 219 pages of actual tasks in this workbook. 219 pages. So I hope you enjoyed that quick sample of the biology formative assessment task. This is a task that really will challenge students, but also prepare students for those state level examinations, but also ensure they are getting the rigor as stated by the standards, either your state standard or next generation science standards. Again, this is a task that it can be purchased physically or digitally, and I have the ability to align this to your state standards as well. I'm excited about this. This centers at the heart of the work and the passion that I have for students and teachers, specifically in the area of science, which again was where I started my career as a high school science teacher. Please reach out if you have any questions. If you would like to see more of this, go to the website www.fullyengageed.com. You will find the email address there as well as a contact number. Again, the web address is www.fullyengageed.com. I look forward to hearing from you. I'll look forward to sharing with you as well. Until then, have a great school year. And I know that you're going to be successful because you are committed to student achievement by doing the work, being committed to data, being committed to teacher capacity and growth, and doing what's right for students. That's what we believe at Fully Engaged, where we simply want to ignite the flame of achievement and sustain it. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.